I'd like to welcome everybody to this regular council meeting for the Corporation Township of Puslinch on February 6, 2019. We'll start with disclosure of pecuniary interests. Not seeing any. Okay. We'll start with moved by Councillor Goyda, seconded by Councillor Sapoulis, that council receive the A, confidential verbal report from Peter Pickfield, Garrett Pickfield LLP regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose with respect to matter before the OMB University of Guelph Dufferin Aggregate Zoning Bylaw Appeal, and that council authorizes Peter Pickfield, Garrett Pickfield LLP to execute the minutes of settlement to the satisfaction of the township solicitor and the CAO/clerk. And B, confidential verbal report from Peter Pickfield, Garrett Pickfield LLP regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with respect to the municipal jurisdiction on environmental matters, and that staff proceed as directed. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moved by Councillor Sapoulis, seconded by Councillor Goyda, that the minutes of the following minutes be adopted as written and distributed. A, Countywide Council Orientation, December 14th, 2018. B, Capital and Operating Budget Meeting, January 16th, 2019. C, Council Training, January 16th, 2019. D, Closed Budget Meeting, January 16th, 2019. E, Council Meeting, January 23rd, 2019. F, Closed Council Meeting, January 23rd, 2019. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All in favor? Carried. Next, are we up to business arising out of previous minutes? Any business out of previous minutes? I'll make a quick comment on that. I'll be putting a notice of motion forward, and it'll be in regard to the conversation with the Director of Public Works regarding the tree cutting. I was under the understanding there was an ask from the Director for an increase in the operating budget for cutting trees. So in the notice of motions, I'll be addressing that, and that's arriving from the business of previous minutes. Okay, and public meetings. Yeah, last night we had the public information meeting on the asset management plan and the proposed 2019 budget. I felt it went very, very well. It was well attended, especially the asset management plan, which can seem daunting, I think, at times. And the individuals in the gallery were quite informed. I don't know if you have any questions or comments, Councillor. Well, I'll start over here today.
No, I don't have any. No.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I thought there was some good conversations last night about gravel roads, and I had a question of staff. When will there be an opportunity? I guess we'll get a report back from the consultant with the following up from the public meeting. Will there be an opportunity to maybe address some of those concerns by council after that report, or will the consultant address those concerns as part of that report, or questions that came up?
The consultant should address the concerns that were raised at the public meeting. If the intent is when they report back, they'll be reporting back on what is proposed to be the final asset management report. However, if council has any further changes at that time, that would be the time to indicate what changes you would like made to that particular plan, and we would go from there. But that would be the appropriate time to make sure that the concerns are addressed to your satisfaction and make any changes to the plan.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, I saw that there was some, it was good to have the residents asking about the service level policies, and to hear the different responses from the consultant, and I realize there may be some opportunity to clarify what was intended by our service level policy. So I'll look forward to what they come up with. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Goyda.
I just had the same sort of question, I suppose, as Councillor Bulmer had in regards to, I guess, what the process would be based on the comments that were received last night. There was some good discussion, or some good things that were brought up, I thought, on behalf of especially the gravel roads. And perhaps if we want to address some of the items in the service levels as they relate to gravel roads or any other item, I guess my question would be, would we bring that up at the council meeting to which they're proposing the final plan, or Or will there be sort of another discussion round at a future council meeting and then the adoption of the plan in the end?
I guess it would be helpful if members of council had something specific in mind,
Yeah.
that they make staff aware of what
Okay.
that is. And then that way we can make sure that we do address it, or at least advise you of the process to address it
Okay.
moving forward. Because I would say that if there is to be a change in service level, obviously that could have financial implications.
Yes.
And maybe, and not knowing exactly what the comment may be, maybe it's how you move forward to look at changing that service level and understanding what the cost implications are might be something that council wants staff to look into, but perhaps it's just identified that this is a first step that the council would be taking in order to understand what the potential changes are in a service level and the costs associated with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I believe in the audience, there was also concern with the lights and the old Morrison Ballpark, and at MCO, you mentioned that it would have to be a decision by council, so would that have to be a decision for the asset management plan, or as a live document, it can be addressed, you know, say,
That doesn't have to be changed in the asset management plan per se. However, if council wanted to include it in the capital forecast, then council would have to make that decision to include it in the capital forecast.
and that would be in the next meeting, or?
Depending on when when one was to consider including it, whether you were looking at including it in the 2019 budget or you were looking at the capital forecast. So if you're looking at incorporating anything into the 2019 capital budget, it would have to be at the next meeting, because it won't hit the 2019 budget. If if you want to forecast it for a future year, you could certainly do it at the next meeting. However, it's not, I'm not going to say it's not a pressing issue due to the fact that you're not including it in that particular year. So then it could be raised at any time in advance of the next budget approval process or during the next budget process itself.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the public information meetings? Okay. Communications. So we have the Roselle Pit monitoring report. Any questions or comments on that?
No, I'm fine with the way it's good. It's good to see that everything looks fine. Spoke to the CAO on one item that I thought was outstanding, but it was addressed through correspondence, so I'm okay.
Excellent. Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, so the only outstanding piece there was the site plan amendment for monitoring of the fisheries. Have they finalized that? I don't remember seeing that. I remember they overshot their temperature exceedance.
Oh, no, there hasn't been any further update in that,
Haven't,
Councillor
okay.
Bulmer.
Okay. Councillor Goyda?
No, I have no comments.
Okay. And we have the ecological correspondence from GW Ecological and Forestry Services dated January 24th. Any questions or comments, Councillors?
No, fine.
Councillor Bulmer?
Nope.
Councillor Goyda?
Nope.
I'm fine as well. All right. Okay, so now we're into intergovernmental affairs. First one is Corporation Township of Wilmont correspondence. Any comments or questions? Councillor Spillis?
No.
Councillor Bulmer? No. Councillor Goyda?
Nope.
All right. Bill 66 resolution. So these, sorry?
Yes, some of those come in after the
Yeah.
fact, after the province made a change to the Schedule 10 in terms of not,
Yeah.
they still hit your agenda.
Which is fine, it's good. I think that because of these letters, that's why there was a change in the Schedule 10. So, you know, the pressure had some results here for our benefit, which is excellent. I think this is Cambridge. Any questions or comments? This is the official plan for Cambridge. Councillor Spillis?
No.
Councillor Bulmer?
Nope.
Okay. Correspondence from Yana Burns on County of Wellington Newcomer Summit. Any questions or comments? Councillor Spillis, Councillor Bulmer?
I'm going to try to attend that.
Yeah, I'm going to try as well.
Got it on my calendar.
Councillor Goyda? Okay, let me just scroll down here a little bit. All right, we have, the next one up is the Letter to the province and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Any questions or comments, Councillor Spoulos?
Nope.
Councillor Balmer?
This is from C.N. Watson and Associates?
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty important issue. Municipalities went through this about 18 or 19 years ago, where the province changed the legislation regarding the development charges, and municipalities took quite a significant hit. I think it took 12 to 14 years for them to get back up to where they were. In the meantime, that burden of growth was shifted to the property taxes, and so I'm glad to see that they're on top of this, and again, and raising the concern, because we do rely on them. They help refill our reserves, and they help cover some of the cost of growth-related expenses. So I was glad to see this report.
Councillor Goida?
No.
Okay. And the report, results of OMER's review, 726. Any questions or comments, Councillor
I
Spoulos?
just have a concern I got is, it might be a big hit later on. The sooner they address it, the better it'll be. They're just not looking forward to something about 2-3 years. It'll be a big hit on all of us.
Councillor Balmer?
We talked, this is about the deficiency in the homeless, is it not?
Yeah.
We talked about that previously, that don't know what the hit's going to be, though, do we? I couldn't get from this what they expect the shortfall, what the percentage hit is going to be. I couldn't tell, or did I just misreading it?
MCO?
No, Councillor Bomer, if I may, I don't think you're misreading it at all. I think that it's not known. I think this is from the MEPCO. Yeah. What they're just expressing is that the few changes that they put in place really don't sufficiently address the sustainability of the plan itself.
Yeah.
And in the absence of that, and with the knowledge of how there will be fewer contributing members in OMERS, as those who are getting set to retire, there will be coming through the system over the next 5 to 10 years. Without putting some of those measures as proposed in place, then financially, that's the employer and employee that are paying into the system is where that difference will have to be made up at some point. But yeah, it hasn't been quantified what those numbers will be, but it's certainly something I'm sure of interest to many municipalities as it moves forward.
Councillor Goode?
No.
Just final comment, I think they should go through an asset management plan.
Which?
Asset management plan. As a contributing member of OMERS, and it's a lot of discussion around my work lunch table, and they're aware there's issues of it not being 100% funded, and we're hoping that it gets resolved, because if we have another economic downturn, it's just going to exacerbate the problem, and like Madam CEO said, the employer and the employees are going to pay, so hopefully we see some changes coming forward. Okay, next one is the summary of the GRCA General Membership Meeting. Any questions or comments? Councillor Spoulos, Councillor Balmer?
No.
Letter to heads of council. This was about the Schedule 10, I believe. Yep. So any questions or comments on this? Councillor Spoulos? Councillor Balmer?
Nope.
Councillor Goida?
No.
Okay. Emo policy update. Any questions or comments? Councillor Spoulos?
Yeah, I was wondering, Mr. Mayor, if you have any insight into whether or not the County of Wellington made any overtures to the province with respect to this pre-budget submission as it relates to the funding we normally receive, like OMPF funding?
So I am aware that Warden Linton penned a letter to the Minister of Finance. I penned one as well, and as well at Roma there was significant pressure, but we're still not receiving any answers. But that was the focus of their presentation, was how important the OMPF funding is. But just generally just letters submitted to the Minister of Finance, and there's going to be continued pressure. Gentle pressure, I would say. That's the best update I can give you at this time.
Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Balmer? Any comments?
No, other than you mentioned it was mentioned at the conference, and that was certainly a topic of discussion, and the minister alluded to the fact that the 90% of his delegations that he'd receiving or was receiving was on that issue.
Yeah.
So
So Counselor Smith?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so that's it for intergovernmental affairs. So moved by Counselor Goyda, seconded by Counselor Sepoulis, that the intergovernmental affairs correspondence items listed on the council agenda for the February 6, 2019 council meeting be received. All in favor? Carried. We don't have the delegation today. Reports. Postage Fire, do we have one? None? What we have? Okay, cancellation, reduction of, so moved by Counselor Sepoulis, seconded by Counselor Goytis. The council does hereby authorize the application for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes, Chapter 25, Section 357 or 358 of the Municipal Act 2001 as follows. Year 2018, applicant 10/18, roll number 1-01450, write-off amount $1,985.10. Do we need comments or questions on that? All in favor? Carried. Moved by Counselor Ballmer, seconded by Counselor Sepoulis, that report finance 2019-005 regarding the third quarter financial reports 2018 be received. Any questions or comments on that report? Counselor Sepoulis.
Yes, the bottom line looks good. I had a lot of small questions that staff answered for me. Just a question of staff. The surplus by department report, when do you anticipate providing that?
Sometime in early March. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Ballmer?
No.
Counselor Goyda?
No, I look at it, and just in the summary alone, that the expenditures have 28% remaining and the revenues have 29% remaining, and that seems to correspond with 25% of the year remaining, so
Right.
some things are over, some things are
Yeah.
under, but I think overall, everything looks good, so I'm perfectly happy with that.
Excellent. Me as well. All right, so all in favor? Carried. Okay. All right. Moved by Counselor Sepoulis, seconded by Counselor Ballmer, that staff report ADM 2018-004 regarding the council disclosures of pecuniary interest be received for information. Any questions or comments? Counselor Sepoulis?
No.
Counselor Ballmer?
No.
Counselor Goyda?
Nope.
I have none. All in favor? Carried.
Well-written report.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Ballmer, seconded by Counselor Sepoulis, that report ADM 2019-005 regarding 2018 annual water report, drinking water system number 2006-21034 be received, and that the 2018 annual water report be submitted to the ministry and the applicable agencies as outlined in report ADM 2019-005. And I think Madame CEO would like to just make a correction on
Yes,
this
thank you,
report.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to note for council's information, Councilor Sepoulis had a keen eye on one of the columns. It's on page 3, actually, and it's just on the first table under treated. We had left the actual input from the ministry that's on the standard form, and it's actually to read less than 10 minus greater than 40. So that correction has been made, and of course, will be posted accordingly.
Any questions or comments?
I have one question.
Counselor Ballmer?
Yeah, I noticed that we're still providing, we're providing the treatment in the library. This report mentions that we're supplying the water to the library. Are we supplying the UV system there, or are they providing their own? Because the library was mentioned in this report.
Director
Yeah,
of Public Works.
when the new library was built, the UV unit, the township UV unit was transferred over into the new library. So it's our UV unit that's in the library as well. And because they're coming off the well of the PCC, that makes it, it's ours to maintain and to sample.
Yes, understood. I ask because just recently at the BCC, when it changed hands, the county apparently used a different UV system than we do, and they changed that one to match theirs. So I guess there's not any talk of them doing the same thing at the library?
Well, they really can't because it's our system.
Okay, because it's
It's
connected to
our
our
well.
well. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. That answers the question.
Okay. Counselor Guida?
No, I have no
Okay, I
comment.
have none. Okay, so all in favor of that, receiving those reports? Carried. Okay. Planning and building, we have none. Roads and Parks Department, any update? Recreation Department? Oh, Mayor's update. So I have just a couple items. I met with Mayor Guthrie this morning, and it was just an introductory meeting, and it went very well, very receptive. I had a quick conversation with him about the Claire Maltby development, and he's, like I mentioned, he's very receptive of our concerns of a urban boundary that we are in favor of, where it's a bit of a 60-meter setback. So he's definitely going to have some conversations with his staff in regards to that. And he did mention that he wants to work well with our municipality because we have so many ongoing projects that are intertwined. And I just felt very reassured coming out of the meeting with Mayor Guthrie, and I look forward to more conversations. We had the Roma conference down in Toronto. We had our delegation with the Minister of Transport. It went well. As for the Highway 6 bypass, they just stated, and you can collaborate with us, that they're still doing the survey work, they're still doing the archaeological work, but there still wasn't a commitment quite yet on the project. One fact he did say was that if Matthew, you're great with numbers, and as well as you, John, or sorry, Councillor Spoulos, Councillor Bulmer, they have $5 billion to work with, and 2.5 of it was already spoken for, so we're hoping to be in that other half for the Highway 6 bypass. I threw a new, positive gain of the Highway 6 bypass is that it creates an emergency detour route that connects, Highway 6 to the 403 instead of putting the traffic through the hamlets of Morrison, Campbellville, and Aberfoyle. Hopefully they agree with that and see the importance. And, we push the economic benefits. They've already almost have all the infrastructure in place to widen the highway to 10 lanes, and to not have the bypass in place would be an economic bottleneck there. So he was very receptive, and then we quickly mentioned the Halton Truck Inspection Station, which was on our agenda. I asked them if they would ensure that they had a site meeting with the landowners. That was a big concern with the landowners, and he mentioned to his staff that he would like to see a site visit so they can express their concerns. And I noticed in the delegation that our light pollution concerns and others that we had brought up, the tile drainage for the farmers' fields, that it's on their radar. So that's excellent news that they're going to be cognizant of it. But still, I think that's going to be their primary site for the truck inspection station. I don't see it being moved to one of the other ones, but if that's where it's going to end up, I hope that they'll work with us with our concerns and the residents. So that's, do we have anything else for the mayor's update?
Just ask a question. Amir, I was wondering if you could make your letter public, the one that you provided to the minister, perhaps as part of the next agenda, or put it online, so at least our residents know that we took a proactive approach.
That's an excellent recommendation, Councillor Spoulos, and we have that, and I'll forward that on. They may even still have it, Deputy Clerk Nina. And there's another correspondence that I have. Maybe did we post the letter that I penned to the Minister of Finance? Maybe we can include that one as well. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. Councillor Bulmer, Mayor's updates, any questions or comments? No. Councillor Gleda?
No, I just wanted to say at the Roma conference that was my first experience meeting with the minister. I thought you did an excellent job, and I know that it was perhaps not planned, at least on their end, to discuss the inspection stations, but I was happy that you brought it up, and I was happy with their response, that they seemed pretty receptive to visiting the site and perhaps speaking with some of the homeowners, which I think is an important issue. So I think you did a really good job, and it was, for myself, it was a very good experience, the whole few days. I was there one day more than expected because of the weather, but I thought it was very good.
So thank you. Councillor Spoulos, let's come back to you. No, you're good? Okay. Okay, notices of motion. Oh, do we?
So you spoke to that? earlier.
Well, I just spoke as to why, so that I'll just clarify a little further. So I just wanted to ask, so the notice of motion I'm going to put forward is I'm going to ask for the Director of Public Works that we provide, you know, an operating budget increase of $20,000 for tree cutting. So I wanted to ask the Director of Public Works, if, for clarification, if that was your intent for basically a separate budget line for tree cutting for the operating budget of 2019. Is that a fair
That is
statement?
correct. That was my intent.
Now, and I'll just clarify as to why I'm bringing this motion forward, is that I believe the director can implement the program, and I'm just going to ask you, do you feel we need to do any further studies to implement this tree cutting program, or is this a good first step to get underway in cutting some of these problematic trees on the?
There's definitely no reason that we couldn't proceed. There's no shortage of trees out there that we know that need to come down. Again, $20,000 is going to give us about 12 days worth of cutting. The other option would be to at least get the program going and maybe use some of that funds to get the company to do a survey and maybe break the township into quarters and start the work, but also do a brief survey of that quarter for that year to get a better idea of what has to come down in that section. Then the next year, just move it to a different section. But if we don't get some more funding, you know, we don't have the funding to have a program in place based on the funding that is in the budget now, which is committed to other areas in that. So the funding for trees is very limited.
Okay, so I'll leave it at that, and I'll just, I think our next regular meeting is February 20th, so that'll give council members an opportunity to discuss it with the Director of Public Works, and then we'll have our normal discussion about it on the 20th. Okay? What else do we have? So that's that. Committee minutes, doesn't look like we have anything. Municipal announcements. Councilor Spillis?
Yes, I got some correspondence from the Grand River Conservation Authority that they're accepting applications now for grants for schoolyard and community environment groups to receive funding to undertake some conservation projects. The deadline for application is February 28th, so we can get up to $1,000 for community projects, and schools can get up to $750 to pay for natural elements as well as part of a schoolyard naturalization project. So that's something that some of our residents might be interested in.
Excellent.
Community groups might be interested in.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Councilor Palmer?
Thank you. Maybe I'll just give my little report on the update of the Roma conference,
That would be-
my attendance there then. On Sunday, I had the opportunity to attend a workshop talking about filling in the gap in communities where we don't have local newspapers, and at the risk of complimenting our local newspaper, it became very evident that how fortunate we are here to have the services of something like the Wellington Advertiser, because operations like the Wellington Advertiser still employ qualified, accountable journalists to prepare news, and the speakers were quite clear on the difference between news that a journalist writes and information that a municipality provides, and I don't know how to put it politely, but they were talking about citizen journalists, and they weren't necessarily as complimentary. As much as they try to fill in the gap, they're not as accountable as a professional journalist. So as much as we knew we were lucky here, it was interesting to see and hear from other communities who don't have that, the challenges they face. And of course, there was a comment from the presenters about resist the temptation to produce your own news, notwithstanding that the province has decided to take that approach and try to prepare their own news. It's not news. When you cover yourself, it's certainly appropriate for a municipality to prepare newsletters and share information. That's more than appropriate, but don't try to sell it as news. The public will see right through it. So, on Monday, what was after that? Well, there was an excellent guest speaker following that. I believe both you and Councillor Goiter were there for on the bellwether effect. They had a leadership consultant talking about some of the impacts that can occur when organizations take on practices that they see other organizations doing, without actually asking why and if those practices have a beneficial effect for your organization or not. In some cases, some of those practices can have a negative effect. So it was quite interesting to hear someone who's worked for some of the largest organizations in the world talk about some of the negative things that we may pick up from each other. And that was very well received, I thought. On Monday, there was an interesting workshop on the future, the 5G, networks that are coming. I won't bore you with all the fascinating technical details that I really enjoyed. But a couple of interesting things that are applicable here that I heard is that the 4G systems that already exist will be upgradable to 5G. That shouldn't be an issue for the hardware. But one of the challenges we face is that the CRTC, they have a coverage map, and this coverage map is what they use for a lot of the decision-making on where investments are going to be made. The resolution is so poor that it shows much of southwestern Ontario is already being serviced by 4G systems, either fiber or fixed wireless. As many of us know around this table, and we've heard it from our residents, that's not the case. We don't have dependable high-speed internet everywhere. There's a lot of gaps, and that's one thing that the industry representatives were talking about, is that if you have an opportunity, which we do through the SWIFT organization, to go online, do a speed test, record your location, they need that to update that mapping to show the CRTC that there is a demand and there's a need out here. It helps guide funding. A lot of organizations and bodies use that mapping to direct funding. So the errors in those maps, or the poor resolution of those maps is holding back some of the decision making. The good thing is, they mentioned that the industry representative mentioned that the industry is willing to work with other partners to make things happen. And I've got some information from another community I can share in the future who have made some changes. So once I get that, I think it's Mississippi Mills is a place that has made some progress in that regard. What's next? Very interesting, Councillor Goyda and I both were in the workshop on streamlining the planning process, and two things that I won't speak much on this one because I'm sure Councillor Goyda will have lots on this one. Two pieces that stood out for me was, we talked about the Open for Business bylaws looking to streamline planning processes. Well, municipalities have already had a tool to streamline the planning process for years, and many have made use of it, known as the community planning permit system. So there was a presenter on that, on how to make use of those, and I can see there may be some opportunities. A lot of communities use them in very narrow, limited applications, and I think we might have an opportunity to look at those in the future. But I think one that I hear a lot about here that they talked about was in some building departments, when you apply for a building permit, you can also, at that same counter, fill out the application for the appropriate conservation authority, or the municipality submits the application on your behalf. And I know that's confusing for our residents here sometimes. They don't know which CA to deal with. But I thought that'd be interesting. I don't know exactly how they make it work, but in these cases, the municipality files the application to the appropriate conservation authority if you're putting in a garage or whatever it is, if you need a permit approval from the CA. So those are two things that I heard that I thought we might be able to look into for ourselves. Tuesday. There was an excellent energy industry analyst who spoke about some of the challenges that rural municipalities face, or the industry faces, regarding the expansion of natural gas, which we've talked about here a fair bit as well. And he had some interesting figures, because so much of our natural gas is now coming from the U.S., thanks to the success of fracking in the Pennsylvania area. The supply of U.S. natural gas has gone up 143%, and which is sort of taken away from the Western supply. So their Western supply has dropped 73% here in southwestern Ontario. So it's not just the oil sector, it's not just oil that's going down because of that, but natural gas, and that's what we're seeing, the prices dropping in natural gas too. But he said in rural areas that some of the challenges for people, for municipalities to get involved or for residents to get involved in expansions is that the cost to convert can be anywhere from $7,000 to $12,000 for someone to change over from whatever they have to natural gas, and with a 7 to 15-year payback. Now, of course, that's not the same in urban areas. The cost may be less. And he said that what happens sometimes is people who, when they face those long payback times, may change their mind as to whether they may sign up, say, yes, well, we're going to change if it comes, and then when the gas line goes past their house, they may be planning on selling in 5 or 6 years and don't make that investment. So that's why sometimes these things don't go as quickly as they'd like. It was great we heard from the mayor of Kincardine, who said, well, but in their area, they've done the studies twice now to show the costs are a lot less, and people are clamoring to get at it, and even they can't get natural gas into Kincardine yet. So interesting talk all the way around. Thank you very much.
Councillor Guida?
I'll just touch briefly on the same workshop that I attended, as well as Councillor Balmer, in regards to the planning. I thought it was a really good presentation that they made and talked about streamlining they talked a lot about the permit application, and it resonated with me a little bit because of some experiences and other things that I've gone through, and not always knowing, when you're applying for a permit, is it a site plan alteration? Do you need a permit from the Conservation Authority? Do you need a entrance permit? What are all the things involved in order for us to get to the end result of applying for a permit? And they didn't necessarily talk about how they achieved that, streamlining the process, but they talked about the amount of time that was saved in sort of putting it all together. And I don't exactly know how we would maybe implement that here at the township, but it was an interesting discussion and definitely some good food for thought. And the other thing that I just wanted to mention, not Roma related, is that the Winter Classic, Family Day Winter Classic, takes place next weekend at the community center, and it's a really great event, and hopefully the weather works out that we can actually have some winter events. But just a reminder of that, and to hopefully encourage everyone to come and encourage your neighbors to come, because it's a really good event.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. On to the next. I think we're done.
Nothing else in there.
Unfinished business? No. Bylaws? All right. Moved by Councillor Spula, seconded by Councillor Bulmer, that the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 009-2019 being a bylaw to confirm the proceeding of council for the Corporation Township of Puslinch at its meeting held on the 6th day of February 2019. All in favor? Carried. All right, moved by Councillor Balmer, seconded by Councillor Spillis. Council hereby adjourns at 1:40. All in favor? Carried.